Well, hey there. It's us again. Your pals in Lovecraft. Todd Beardsley and
Claire Reynolds.
And we're here to talk today about lots of things, but mainly the story Polaris by H.P. Lovecraft, first published in the December 1920 issue of The Philosopher. It's an earlier story. It's his first story, actually, in the Dreamlands cycle. So, how does this podcast work again? We talk about Lovecraft stories.
Yes.
Sometimes we talk about bullshit at the beginning.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about at the beginning, or you just want to get into it? We don't have to. There's nothing we have to do.
No, I don't think so. I will say I can't get turned down for what out of my head ever since you showed me that TikTok of that kid dancing to turn down for what to the Trump verdict. Guilty.
Guilty. Oh yeah, I'll sample it.
Guilty.
Yes, I will definitely.
Guilty.
I will definitely drop it in. It was pretty great. Yeah, we're recording this in
three. Guilty.
We're recording this in very early June of 2024. And so we can get into it. So yes, I know. I can't not think about the guilty verdicts. It's so great.
Oh, I want to just pop in and say shout out to my son.
The boy.
His birthday's tomorrow. It's going to be the big 1-4.
That's right.
So maybe someday when he's older, he'll listen to these and he'll be like, hey, they remember my birthday.
That's right. I mean, it is longer than 15 seconds, so I don't know if
probably not.
You'll have the attention span.
That's true. We got to do a TikTok about it, I guess. Hey,
should
we switch to Lovecraft TikTok?
I have thought about this. I don't know how to do it, but how hard can it be?
I'm Jessica from techboomers.com, and in this video, I'll be showing you how to use the TikTok app. Now let's get started.
I've thought about a Lovecraft TikTok.
It's like an abbreviated commentary, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We can just take all of the good jokes and then paste them in. I've seen other podcast TikToks. So Flophouse and Greatest Generation, two podcasts that directly influence this podcast, have little TikTok snippets.
Do they have their faces on there?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'd have to record us.
Yeah. Then they record over Zoom or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go that far. But we could do something. I don't know. We'll think about it. Write in. Do you want a TikTok? Do you want a TikTok of Pod Sothoth? Do you want Talk Sothoth? You probably do. I'm sure you do. That's what's going to happen. All right. In the meantime,
TikTok.Sothoth.
Yes, that's right. I'm trying to think of something else that sounds more like Talk Tulu.
I don't know.
Tick-Tulu. Tick-Tulu.
Yeah.
Tick-Tock-Tulu. I don't know. Yeah, so this is a story about a fellow, I assume, who is an unnamed narrator, our favorite kind of narrator. And he goes on a magical adventure.
Does he? Does he really?
He does. So the story is called Polaris because when it starts off, he talks a lot about the pole star Polaris and how it just is always staring at him balefully and he can't sleep unless it's cloudy out. And what he's actually describing, I looked it up, is siderophobia, which is the fear of stars. Sometimes
it's only one star, though.
He doesn't like all of the stars. There's a lot of stars he doesn't like.
This first paragraph is just he got his encyclopedia or whatever it is, his astronomy book, and just looked up the names of a bunch of star systems and was like, I'm going to drop them all right here in this first paragraph.
So, Lovecraft himself, the author, since he was a little tiny boy, was a big fan of astronomy, like many children are. But to the point where even through his early adulthood, he was writing columns in the local newspaper about astronomy. I think it's very fair to call him an amateur astronomer. He spent time at Brown University. He booked time on the telescope there. I don't know how much you can see in Providence. It's kind of cloudy all the time, but he had his own 3-inch telescope. He wrote somewhat extensively in an amateur way about, features on the moon and features of Jupiter and all that. So he does name drop quite a few stars. Would you like to go through every star and constellation that he names? Because I have notes on all of them.
I don't particularly want to, but
I have a collection
you're
of
in
fun
charge
facts.
here. Okay, well, go ahead. I don't want to deprive you of that.
So the biggest one that jumped out at me is something called Charles's Wain. I had no idea what that was. While Charles's Wain lumbers up from behind the vapor-soaked swamp trees that sway in the night wind. Very scary.
Yeah, I heard it. It's like the vapor-soaked swamp trees.
The vapors.
Look at the vapors.
So Charles's Wain is a kind of an old-timey way of describing the Big Dipper. That's what that is, in case you didn't know. It's called the Big Dipper in the U.S. and Canada. It definitely was in 1920 when this was published. But you know Lovecraft. He likes his antique names.
Yeah. He was born 85 years old.
Mm-hmm. It's called the Plough in the UK and in Ireland. And it is not a constellation, the Big Dipper. Did you know that? I learned this in the research.
I did not know that.
It is an asterism. What is the difference between an asterism and a constellation, you might ask? Well,
I would just say, what is an asterism? I've never heard that word before.
So an asterism is a collection of stars that are generally easily identifiable by lay people, non-astronomers. Mm-hmm. They are often part of constellations, but constellations are annotated. There are 88 constellations, and that's it. That's all the constellations there are. And they're rigorously controlled. They have borders. Stars are in them or out of them, and that's it.
This is gatekeeping, is what you're telling me.
Mm-hmm. It's astronomical gatekeeping, whereas asterisms is more like the people's constellations.
Right.
Some asterisms are also constellations, namely Cassiopeia, which is also mentioned in this. It is a constellation and an asterism because many people, not all people obviously, but many people can just recognize Cassiopeia. It's a big W. And
Cassiopeia is one of the few I can pick out.
Yeah, and that's like an impressive one to pick out. Like everybody can pick out the Big Dipper. You pick out Cassiopeia, you're impressing someone on a first date, I think. I would take that as impressive. Other stars, asterisms, and constellations mentioned are Arcturus is the fourth brightest star in the sky. It's red and it does move quickly, like as seen from Earth, which is why like it tends to, like in the story, like there's a couple different mentions of Arcturus and how it like moves across the horizon. And pop astronomy quiz. What's the brightest star in the sky?
The sun.
Yeah, you got it. You didn't fall for my trap. The brightest star in the sky is, of course, the sun. The brightest star in the night sky is Sirius, which is not mentioned, actually, in the story, which is weird. It's weird that it's not mentioned.
I don't know. Maybe figured like Sirius gets, Sirius gets most of the attention.
Yeah.
Just let's whip out some. It's like, I don't know. It's a little bit like, oh, I know their B-sides.
Uh-huh.
I'm into the.
Yeah, I'm into Aldebaran, which is mentioned.
Alderaan
is a different star.
Aldebaran.
Princess Leia's home star. Aldebaran is also known as the Eye of the Bull. It's a red star. It's in Taurus, which is why it's called the Eye of the Bull. Kind of an interesting fact. Como Berenices, the only constellation named after a real historical figure. It's Berenice II, Queen Regent of Egypt. Yeah, that's one to grow on. And, of course, Polaris is mentioned in the title and throughout. It's pretty bright. It's not the brightest, but it is fixed at the celestial north. And so that is why it's called the pole star, because it seems to be, it never moves, right, during the night. It just kind of is fixed there. We can get into that some more. Put a pin in that about Polaris being the pole star. Nope, that's it. That's all of them.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty boring. So, no. But Lovecraft found it very interesting. And so like stars in the Lovecraft mythos, there's a common saying of like when the stars are right. Mm-hmm. I think it comes up in Call of Cthulhu. Like
the stars at night are big. again, Brett!
Deep in the heart of Riley. Yeah, and so stars are come in and out of lots of Lovecraft stories. And mainly, it's meant to imply cosmic timescales, right? Like, certain things happen when the stars are in a certain position. So, but we'll get more into that in a little bit later, actually, down in the poetry part. But anyway, in the story. So in the story, we have this guy. He lives in the swamp next to a graveyard. He suffers siderophobia.
Shrek.
It is Shrek. It might be Shrek. He's afraid of the stars, and he goes to sleep. And then when he goes to sleep, he is transported. He's transported to a different world, and probably, almost certainly a different time.
Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real?
He's transported to the Dreamlands, and in the Dreamlands, in the beginning, when he first started doing this, he didn't have any body. He was just kind of a floating consciousness around. He could just observe things, but then eventually, he does become corporeal there, and he apparently just kind of like pops into existence and already has like a background, is already familiar with everybody, has a best friend.
Has the best friends.
Mm-hmm. What's the best friend's name? Or did I get too far?
Alos.
Alos, yes. So his best friend is a man's man. He's a leader. He's a leader of men. Mm-hmm. This relationship reminds me a lot of the relationship between Randolph Carter and Harley Warren in the Statement of Randolph Carter.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's kind of like a meek, kind of bookish main character, but his like manly man friend. And so like this is a theme that comes up actually quite a bit in Lovecraft stories. And so this all happens during the night of the Great Aurora, so maybe that had something to do with like the magical power to transport himself to the Dreamlands. The Dreamlands are a real place, by the way. Like that something is not really clear in this story.
You mean in his stories?
In the stories,
okay.
yes. No,
all
I mean
right.
in reality,
I was
Claire.
like, Todd.
Yes. All you got to do is take the red pill. And
please do not.
So he convinces himself during the dream that when he's in Olatho or Olathoe or something like that, right? I'm not super sure how to pronounce it, but the closest I could come to pronounce, like I think I pronounced it in a way when I recorded the story, obviously, and I think I pronounced it Olatho, maybe. But there's a real town in America called Olathe, and it's in Kansas, and it's a suburb of Kansas City. And the next closest town to that is Overland Park, which is home to...
Who the fuck are you?
Who the fuck are you?
I asked you first.
I asked you second.
The most popular girls in school. And if you're not familiar with the most popular girls in school, don't tell your parents and go watch a few episodes. I'll have a link to the show notes.
I'm trying to remember the main girl's name. Like,
Mackenzie?
It's Mackenzie or McKenna or something like that, but I can't remember her last name.
She's Mackenzie Zales, head cheerleader, homecoming queen, part-time model.
But yeah, most popular girls in school is this amazing YouTube series.
Chair captain.
Part-time model. And they're great. And so that's what I assumed that is going on in Olathe, is they're also there. So, and he gives a bunch of landmarks of where it is. It's on the plateau of Sarkis, betwixt the peaks of Noton and Cataphonic. All of these are very difficult to pronounce.
And I love that. I mean, I guess the one thing is it's like the way he's telling us. It's like, is he expecting us to be like, oh, yeah, I know where that is.
Oh,
okay,
okay, I see. Oh.
It's between Noton and Cataphonic.
Right. And so, yeah. So anyway, boy, things are not looking good there because there is an invading force. And here's where we get...
I'm
bit
shocked,
racist.
I tell you. Shocked.
He goes on and on about how, like, he calls them yellow and everything. I like to just assume they're aliens, you know. Maybe they are just like bright yellow, like, you know, like in The Simpsons.
Yeah, we're gonna assume that for this. I mean, because I don't know. Yeah, this story for me just went from bad to worse.
Yeah. They're squat creatures. They're basically orcs. They're little yellow orcs. Okay, like that. Let's just assume that. And you know, and they were they were mighty in the arts of war, but knew not the scruples of honor. So, you know, very orcish. I think not very Klingon, but very orcish.
Yeah, that's right.
And so there's going to be an attack, and he's like all bummed that he can't help defend his beloved city, but his friend puts him on a very important job, and that's lookout.
You had one job.
And so he goes up into the lookout tower, and he sees that ding-dang star. And then as he's like up there, like watching out for this invading force, just to make sure that they don't like surprise the waiting defensive army, he hears this like weird poem, and it seems to be coming from Polaris. Like Polaris itself is speaking this poem, like in his brain.
No, it's definitely the same thing as the poem at the beginning of Thriller that Vincent Price reads.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand.
Okay, so
The funk of 40,000 years.
Funk of 40,000 years. Very good. So speaking of 40,000 years, this is not 40,000 years. It's 6 and 20,000 years. This is important.
So does that mean 20,000, 20, 006 or 26, 000?
Here's how I choose to interpret it. I think the intent is it's 6,000 years and 20,000 years. I don't think it's 20,006 years.
So the sphere's 6 and 20,000 years.
I take
what
it
do
to
you
mean
mean
26,000 years.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
6,000 years
Yeah.
plus 20,000 years.
Okay, sure.
Math class is tough.
Whatever.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's
It doesn't
fake.
matter. It's not
all
fake. Well, here's why I feel like that's important. And maybe Lovecraft knew this, and maybe it was just like a happy coincidence. But you know what? I bet he probably did know it. So 26,000 years is the cycle. It's called the axial precession of the Earth.
Well, you probably did know that then.
And it is the cycle of how the Earth and I'm using my hands, how the Earth wobbles around on its pole. Mm-hmm. And so over a period of time, the celestial north points in different areas of the sky. And so Polaris, in his dream, in the Dreamlands, Polaris is over that pole, just like it is today. But Polaris has not always been the pole star because this pole moves around. And that's the whole cycle, right? And so it's saying like, hey.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what he's saying.
That's what he's saying, right? He's like, hey, in 26,000 years, I'm going to be back and I'm going to be messing up your sleep again. Mm-hmm. And it's a little unclear what Polaris is threatening him with, other than like, I'm going to be back, baby.
Hasta la vista.
And here's another thing. Here's another fun coincidence. 26,000 years ago is right around, off by about 1,000 years, but right around the earliest known human settlement on Earth. So, like, civilization didn't really take off by then. You had but you had like small settlement. And there's like a site in what is now the Czech Republic, that is widely considered to be the oldest site of semi-permanent human residence, right? And so I like that a lot because it puts this story like 1,000 years before that, which puts it smack into this very prehistorical time on Earth. And so like maybe there were like all these crazy cities and Sarnath, right? And and Menard or whatever it was actually called, which I don't remember now.
Say big money.
So like all of these Dreamlands times, you know, are in prehistory, and I think this is the first time, and it's his first dream cycle story, but it's the first time like Lovecraft really nails it down to a particular time. It is 26,000 years ago, which I like a lot. Like maybe something magical happened, right? After this period that just like blinds us to this period of prehistory. Like that's why we don't have any like artifacts or anything of it. I don't know. I thought it was neat. I liked it. And I like that it's like human settlement is so closely tied to this earth wobble. Like maybe
cool.
they're
like that concept.
They're related. And also, it's also the time of the last glacial maximum, which is when the ice age, it's the last major ice age, is right around this time too. So all of these things are connected, right? The wobble of the earth, human civilization, the last great ice age, all of that. So that's pretty neat. So anyway, he gets that. And vainly did he struggle with his drowsiness. But oh well, he fell asleep.
And we all been there before.
Yeah, it's like, welcome to my life.
This is you trying to watch a movie with explosions.
Yes, I love going to the movies. I love going to Alamo Drafthouse. I cannot stay awake during like the penultimate fighty explodey scene in like any Marvel movie. Or any movie really, where there's like just a lot of pointless video game action. So he falls asleep and he's like, damn. He falls asleep and then he wakes up and he's back in his swamp. And he's bedeviled. He's bedeviled by everyone because everyone's saying like, no, you're awake now. What you were doing before was asleep. He's like, no, I'm asleep right now. And those evil invaders are going to come and take over my beloved city and country. And they're like, no, take your medication. And what he is describing, I believe, is depersonalization disorder, which is a thing. It's one of the dissociative disorders, and it's a condition where you believe that you are in a waking dream, or that you're a robot, or that you are witnessing yourself from outside of your own body, something along those lines, right? Like it's a feeling of unreality.
Yeah.
That you just have kind of all the time. And most people who suffer from depersonalization disorder, I guess, have depersonalization disorder. Maybe you don't suffer. Maybe you like it. I don't know. I don't know your life. They know that they have this condition, but it still feels real to them, or unreal, I guess, to them. So that seems to be what he's describing. And so yeah, and then that's it. That's the end of the story. It's a pretty short story. So he spends the rest of his life trying to get back to Olathe or whatever it is, and he never can.
Man, I don't think I'd want to try to get back after you fell asleep and probably you fell asleep on the job. I would not show my face back there again.
I guess, but I think he likes it more than his stupid little swamp hut.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
This story also mentions the Narcotic manuscripts. This is one of Lovecraft's earliest stories. This is the first mention of the Narcotic manuscripts, which show up over and over again, most notably in the Mountains of Madness. Danforth knows about the Narcotic manuscripts and how the elder things are described in there. There's also the Narcotic fragments in other later stories too. I like the Narcotic manuscripts. They're like probably my favorite go-to Lovecraftian tome. Because they're so old and it's not quite as hack as, just like, oh, and then you find the Necronomicon. It's like, no. You found the Narcotic manuscripts. I used them in our Call of Cthulhu game for sure. One of the characters has one of the remnants.
That's right.
And it's pretty fun. Also it's mentioned in like nine or 10 different Lovecraft stories.
I was annoyed, and then I felt pity for him, and that's it.
I mean, it's really short.
Yeah, I was like, oh, look, he's telling us about his dream again. But nothing actually happens.
Sure.
Which is what it's like when you tell, we all, in our heads, our dreams are amazing, and we have to, and then you try to tell somebody else, and the minute you're saying the words out loud, you're
sounds kind of dumb.
It doesn't make any sense. Yes. No, but then I felt really bad for him because when he was describing himself as basically not inept, what's the word? I'm like impotent to help his, that made me think that has to be like some kind of thing from the war. Like,
oh, sure.
He must feel.
Well, yeah, I think you hit on it, right? Like, this is something that Lovecraft himself felt about World War I. Like, he could not serve.
Yeah.
And this like actually really bothered him.
Yeah.
And so I think that part, I think you're right. Like that part is very autobiographical.
Yeah. So that made me feel sorry for him, even though I was super irritated by his racism in here. But I can still feel empathy and sympathy for people who are
Sure.
assholes.
Sure. Speaking of people who aren't assholes, we are going to be around a lot of them at Necronomicon.
Oh, they're wonderful people.
They are. We're going to be there. Necronomicon Providence. Go look it up. Just Google that. You'll find it. It's August 15th to 18th. We're going to be there. And we're going to be performing.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Really?
People know me.
It turns out we actually have a gig. We have a gig booked, Claire. And we will be doing dramatic readings from the fungi of Yuggoth and also commentary. So the fungi from Yuggoth is like a set of poems.
How many?
There's so many. There's like 36
so we're just
of
going
them.
to choose a couple.
We'll I don't think we'll get through them all, but we'll choose a few to like talk it. I really like the fungi from Yuggoth now. Like as a kid, when I was reading Lovecraft, I hated it. I actually hated all the Dreamland stuff.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of into it.
Yeah.
But these like short little couplets really, they just go all over the place. They talk about Nyarlathotep. They talk about the Mygo.
Yeah.
They just hit on so many things. Yog-Sothoth is in there. It's a greatest hits. It's a greatest hits, and so I think it'll play really well in a live audience. And
should we try to find a way to involve the audience? Should we have different audience members come up and read the poem?
Oh, we could do that. It depends on how many people come to our show.
Yeah,
I guess.
all two. My brother and Harley.
Yes, that's right. So our friend and other attorney Harley will be there. Claire's brother and attorney Pete will be there. It's going to be mostly attorneys, actually.
Yeah. So come with your legal questions.
Yes, also come with your legal questions, because it will form a client attorney privilege relationship. Most definitely.
Not true. Todd doesn't know what he's talking about.
And so come see us. I don't know exactly when we're on, but we have gotten word from who has been referred to as the Necrolords, the folks who organized Necronomicon, that they're into this concept. We'll be playing at AS220, which is a community arts space, basically, where they do actually host a lot of poetry readings. So this will be great.
Fun.
There's also a bar. There's a restaurant. It's everything, right? So come hang out and see our show. We'll record it. We'll publish it live, just like we did with the London show. It'll be great.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
I am too.
And go buy tickets. Go hang out, or don't. Just come to our thing. I don't care.
Yeah.
I do care. No, you should go. You should go to Necronomicon proper too. It'll be really fun. I'll be volunteering. Hopefully I'll be doing check-in. I don't know what my job will be. Maybe I'll just be a mop boy. I don't know. But I'll be volunteering for Necronomicon as well. So you can run into me there, and I would love to meet you.
I will not be volunteering. I'll just be.
Claire's some kind of goddamn princess.
Yep, that's right.
I really like I love the hotel, the Graduate. Used to be called the Biltmore. It is Lovecraft himself was very impressed with the Biltmore when it was built, and really liked it.
Oh, did you ever get the issue figured out?
No.
Oh God, yeah.
The reservation system at the Graduate is bonkers insane. I booked a room. I was too late for the Necronomicon room block or whatever, like the discounted rates, and that's fine, whatever. And I booked the room, and then I get an email saying like, "Hey, can't wait to see you. Here's your reservation." And then 5 minutes later, it's like, "Hey, can't wait to see you. Here's your different reservation number
for a different
room, different class of room."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, that's weird. Did I click on like two things at once or something? I don't know. I probably screwed it up." So I canceled it, and then I canceled the whole thing. And I
thought you just canceled one of them, and then it was like, "Oh, you've canceled both."
I tried to cancel the one I didn't want, and it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, and then I go and cancel the one, and it's like, cool, you're canceled. I'm like, okay.
Maybe the second room is like an alternative dimension.
Perhaps it's in the Dreamlands.
Yeah.
I guess. But then I go and rebook it again, and I'm very careful now to know that I'm not clicking on things twice. And then boom, immediately I get two reservations
I
again.
don't want to pay for 2 rooms.
I'm not sure we want to pay for a dimension we're not going to use.
If you happen to book at the Graduate, be forewarned. Their reservation system is a little bizarre. Last time we stayed at the Omni, and that was fine and normal. But I'll stay at this haunted hotel.
Fine and normal.
It'll be great. It's where the ball is, so that'll be handy.
Yeah.
It's this big like Art Deco crazy building.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah,
I love it.
Cool.
It's easily like the coolest looking building in Providence.
I wonder what happened to our high school boys. that
I
showed
don't
up at
know.
the
I'm
last
sure we
one.
told the story on the podcast.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. There were these 3 younger guys who were kind of acting like really hyper, and they were asking me. They're like, "What
They weren't
is this?"
dressed, right? Like
They were
It
had
was
like
all like basketball shorts.
yeah, and they were like, "What is this? What is happening?" And I'm like, "Well, it's a dance for fans of this." The people who are at this conference who are fans of H.P. Lovecraft. And they're, who's H.P. Lovecraft? And I'm like, who are you guys? Why are you here? And they said, well, we're in high school and we just live in the area. And we saw all these people in these crazy costumes walking into this hotel. And so we followed them in.
And they were high school students.
Oh, they were absolutely
they
high
were
school
like
students.
18.
That was 2 years ago, right?
I know, it'll be 2
so
years.
they're all like big boys
They're going to
now.
be 20.
Yeah,
they can almost drink. So
They're probably serving time.
probably they seem like rapscallions. Yeah, and so cool. You got anything else we need to talk about? Thanks, Raider, for paying for this episode. By the way, you're still the only one. If you like the podcast, you can pay us. It's fine. You can. You don't have to though. I don't. It doesn't really matter much to me.
We're gonna do it anyway.
We're gonna do it
It's just a
anyway.
matter- Yeah.
If you want other people to listen to it, though, you should leave a 5-star review and say how great it is. That actually helps a ton in whatever podcast app you use. It seems like most of you, are, according to my stats, most of you are using Spotify or Apple Podcast. So rate it in there, and that's great. Spotify, like I think I mentioned on the last episode, Spotify has some like Q&A thing that I sometimes remember to look at. So you can interact with us over that. You can email us at hideous@podsothoth.club, not .com, .club. hideous@podsothoth.club. Or you can follow us on Mastodon at podsothoth at defcon.social. I post there. I post there actually kind of a lot, and I boost a lot of stuff too, like a bunch of horror junk. So it's pretty fun. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have the Facebook page, but I have not kept up with it at all. I apologize. I know, and I keep getting like takedown notices from Facebook.
For what?
I don't know. Because it doesn't. It's like it purportedly comes from a real person, but it doesn't tell you what it was for. When you ask them, they do not respond.
Okay.
It's like an algorithm or whatever. So I don't know. I don't have time for that.
It's the mad Arab algorithm.
Exactly. Algorithm.
And if you like this, listen to our other podcast, Greatest American Hero podcast called Hot for Teacher.
Our other intermittently released podcast.
If you can believe it, it releases even slower than this one.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this discussion on Polaris. No huge revelations on this one. It's kind of...
Yeah.
It was an older story, but it checks out. So, that's it.